200,000 years ago, the world was covered in ice. During the winter, the snow fell. The summers were warm and the snow melted slightly, but never truly faded away. When the weather cooled again, the soft layer of snow on top froze into ice, and this would repeat itself. The blinding white snow began to reflect heat and sunlight away from the earth. Slowly, the sheets of ice advanced. At their largest, the ice covered a full 32% of Earth's total land area. That's over 47 million kilometres. Even today, glaciers cover nearly 10% of the Earth, and they contain 70% of the globe's fresh water. In Alaska, the land underneath glaciers may be as deep as 2.5 kilometres below the glowing blue ice. It's no surprise that the deepest parts of these massive ice sheets are a mystery. Humans didn't even begin to study the depths of our planet's glaciers until 1840, not even 200 years ago. Thanks to deep ice research, we're now discovering new information about our history every year. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious items found frozen in ice. Organic formations discovered in Utah. Utah Lake is one of the largest freshwater bodies in western USA. At 383 square kilometers, the size makes it a popular destination for local fishermen. Even in the winter, ice fishermen venture out onto the freezing cold to try their luck. This may have been what Jason Nilsson and his friend had planned to do when they walked out onto the frozen lake on a cold afternoon in 2013. By their own estimation, they'd been walking for about 1.5 kilometers when they came across something particularly unusual. There, seemingly growing out of the ice, were several large circles. Unlike the rest of the ice around them, they weren't covered in snow. Instead, there were 2 perfect circles of an unusual consistency. Upon further inspection, the 2 boys confirmed that they were slimy and soft. Adding to their alien-like appearance was the fact that each circle was covered in small holes. The holes themselves seemed to radiate from the centre of each circle. Upon closer inspection, the boys discovered an irregularly shaped whitish object at the centre of each hole. Their theory? Alien eggs. After filming for around 2 minutes, Jason and his friend left the so-called eggs and returned safely home. They uploaded their footage to YouTube, where it sat in relative obscurity until 2015. Some internet explorer chanced upon the mysterious footage and began to share it. It was passed around from screen to screen, and its trajectory grew. In short order, the video gained 1.7 million views, all of them wondering what these circles could be. Each person had a different guess, but no one could be certain. That is, of course, until the video reached an artist by the name of Claire Lewis, who could solve everything. In 2013, Claire was a university student located in Utah. She was enrolled in an art class with some unusual assignments, one of which was to create a public installation. She decided to use the large blank canvas presented by nearby Utah Lake. On a windy afternoon, Claire walked out onto the ice, carrying a small bag of salt-baked dough she had made herself. Carefully, she laid them out in a geometric shape. Prior to photographing her work, she carefully used a snow shovel to erase her footprints. She took the pictures and trudged away, and after the semester ended, she didn't give the work a second thought. Overnight, the salt in her dough sank into the ice, creating a pattern of holes. Sometime that week, Jason and his friend had stumbled upon the sculpture, and the melting ice and texture of the dough created something alien. Due to the power of the internet, the mystery was solved. The Gambhir Mountains. Europe's famous mountain range. Covering 8 countries, they span 1,200 kilometres, reaching heights of 4,800 kilometres at the highest peak. Their beauty is known around the world. As a matter of fact, most people can name a couple of the world's largest mountain ranges: the Himalayas, the Andes, but not many have heard of Gambhir Mountains. A massive mountain range discovered less than 75 years ago, the Gambhir are located entirely under a thick plate of ice nearly 600 meters deep. It's for good reason that it took humanity so long to discover the Gambhir. Despite the fact they're a massive geological formation, they're near a spot called the Southern Pole of Inaccessibility. A pole of inaccessibility is a location that is the absolute most challenging to reach by virtue of being as far away as possible from any coast. The Southern Pole of Inaccessibility is located in the centre of the Antarctic landmass, and it's much more difficult to travel to than even the South Pole itself. The first research station in this area was established by a Soviet expedition in 1958, and it was this group of men who ultimately discovered the mountains. For many years, the popular consensus among scientists was that the rock under the Antarctic ice cap would be flat and featureless, grown down by millennia of ice slowly grinding against rock. Once the mountains were discovered, it was assumed they would be smooth and rolling like the European Alps, ground down by time. However, a new survey conducted around 2008 found something surprising. The mountains stood sharp and strong, much like the relatively new American Rockies. It turns out that the ice sheet, which had covered everything in its path 35 million years ago, completely encased the mountains, freezing them in their place. Even though glaciers are known to move and shift, most of that movement is internal, meaning the effects of erosion on the Gambhir were ultimately stopped. Even though glaciers are known to move and shift, most of the movement is internal, meaning the effects of erosion on the Gambhir were essentially stopped. Today, digital survey tools enable us to look at the mountains that are billions of years old, but only look to be in the millions. Geologically speaking, the Gambhir are particularly important. Their location is thought to be where the ice sheet we know today began to travel across the Antarctic continent. Studies of this unusual range can therefore reveal unique climate data from millions of years ago, helping scientists to understand Earth's history. As geophysicist and researcher Robin Bell pointed out, we have samples of the Moon, but none of the Gambhir. Here's to another step in unravelling the fascinating history of our planet. The Viking Sword. The year was 793. In Lindisfarne, a small island off the northeast coast of England, a community of monks resided in a small abbey. They spent their days dedicated to prayer and Christian teachings. On June 8th, their peace was disturbed by a roving party of northern warriors, travelling from modern-day Norway. The warriors killed the monks and took the church treasures, gaining both wealth and instant reputation for terror. The Viking Age had begun. The Vikings were uniquely known in Europe for their power and wrath. Medieval scholars called them wolves among sheep. Viking raiding parties travelled in well-stocked ships from Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. For the next 300 years, the raids were perceived as unstoppable. Modern-day teachings believe that Vikings may have had a psychological advantage over their largely Christian enemies. This is because they believed that being killed in combat would send them to Valhalla, the legendary Viking feast and afterlife. Even though the Vikings were a short-lived group of warriors lasting around 300 years, they're well known by even the most novice history scholar. When a Norwegian hunter discovered a Viking sword in the 21st century, a spark of fascination was set off all around the world. This hunter was exploring the high mountains near his countryside home when he stumbled upon something unusual. Sticking out of a loose pile of half-frozen stones, he saw a rusty blade. Curious, he pulled the artifact out blade first. It was then that he realised he had discovered a sword. Though the blade lacked any kind of sheath or padded hilt, it was easily recognisable. Upon his return from the mountains, he called a local preservation society. Using the metadata in photos he had taken, he and 2 archaeologists returned to the same spot the next day. Unfortunately, there weren't any other items to be found. Norwegian archaeologists were able to confirm the sword's veracity, and they attributed the survival for over 1,200 years to the good quality of Viking iron. Most likely, the sword had remained in its remote location, completely undisturbed since the original owner had abandoned it there. For most of the year, it was likely covered in frost, snow, and ice, and its position, wedged in between stones, helped to keep it safe. One mystery does remain though. What was a lone Viking doing on an isolated mountain top on rough terrain? There's no sign of nearby burial, or indeed any other remains at all. The leading theory is that a blizzard may have caused one man to separate from a group. Each year, we discover more and more things about the planet that we live on. As technology advances, it's possible we'll discover something hidden in these massive sheets of ice that humankind is yet to see. So what do you make of these mysterious items found in the ice? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, and help us by growing this community whilst working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.